All right, so hello everybody. Welcome to a monthly meeting of the Sustainability, Energy and Resiliency Committee, known as SERC, SERC. I'm John Hayes. I'm the chair of the committee. I happen to be a professor of geography and sustainability at Salem State. And we normally begin a meeting with introductions. Just will make one comment. Since the pandemic, SERC has been meeting virtually, like many city boards and commissions. But at the end of summer, we made a decision as a committee that we would like to have see each other once in a while. So we're going to have an in-person meeting 4 times a year. So this is one of our in-person meetings, so welcome. So again, I'm going to pass the baton to the Vice Chair of SERC, which is over here.
Hi, my name's William Wynn, Vice Chair of SERC. I've been on for nearly 3 years now, and Master of Public Policy from Northeastern, and currently working as a tech review specialist for abode energy management in the Mass Save program.
Very cool.
Go with Betsy is next. Sure. Seniority, I guess.
Yep, my name is Betsy Frederick. I am a resident of Salem, obviously a member of SERC for the last several years. A retired environmental planner with specific interests in sustainability and stormwater management.
Thanks, Betsy. Kevin?
Hi, Kevin Rice. I've been a member on SERC for I think 3 months now. And then for profession, I work with the Blackstone Watershed Collaborative doing their finance and program management.
Very cool. And Stacy Kilb.
Yep, Stacy Kilb. I'm the Sustainability Engagement Coordinator and Energy Coach, and I'm the City Staff Liaison to SERC, and I take the minutes.
Wonderful.
John, do you know, just a quick note,
sure.
Do you know if either or any of the other members of the board are joining by Zoom?
Are they joining? Stacy, do we know?
I don't think so. I didn't see anybody on the Zoom thing just now, and it's 10 minutes into
So
the meeting,
I'll just make a comment then for the public. We do have a quorum for SERC, but we did have one of our members is sick, and another one has an issue with a partner in terms of medical issue. So that's some of our missing members. So welcome. So today we have a guest speaker, and we're kind of continuing one of our focuses on sustainability and climate change resiliency planning as a committee. Last October, we had a guest speaker, Erin Bonnie Casey, who's the executive director of the Ipswich River Watershed Association, and she gave a presentation on the status of the Ipswich River watershed update. And the Ipswich River is the drinking water supply for Salem and Beverly, and so we thought that to have an update on the river and this really important NGO to the region would be valuable, and so that presentation is available. It's at Salem Access TV, and it's I believe at the SERC website. And it's at the SERC website. So tonight we're kind of continuing that, and we're really grateful that David Michelson is here from the South Essex Sewerage District, SCSD. He's been with SCSD for 12 years. He told me he began in an engineering role, and he's been the executive director of SCSD since 2020. So we invited David because we had heard about a kind of a forward-looking 20-year kind of management plan was having had some interest in climate change resiliency and awareness of climate change. So that was partly our incentive for inviting Dave, and we're just really glad to welcome him to our monthly meeting. Thank you.
Thanks for the introduction. My name's David Michelson, the Executive Director of the South Essex Sewerage District. I think I'm going a little bit off script from the agenda, but we're going to start with basically a couple, 15 minutes or so about what SESD is, what wastewater treatment is, and then we'll go into the resiliency from there. Quick agenda, who we are, wastewater 101. We'll talk about sustainability and then we can have some discussion, but with a group this small, we can probably just take the discussion as it goes, certainly. So SESD provides wastewater treatment services to 190,000 people, residents and businesses in our 5-member communities.
No, it's too dark.
Yep, no, sorry, just trying to turn off these. but not-
Sorry,
Gotcha.
Dave. We just
That's all
wanted
right. So we provide wastewater services to these 5 communities: Beverly, Danvers, Salem, Peabody, and Marblehead. We treat and process about 25 million gallons of water each day, removing the contaminants to make sure they aren't released in the environment. And for those of you in the public who like to hear it in things, you can get around 312,500 bathtubs per day. So, point of reference. We were established in 1925 and as a regional municipal entity by an act of the legislature. So we just celebrated our 100th year anniversary last year. We're governed by a 6-member board. So there's 1 member from each community that serves on our board, and then we've got a board chair who has to live outside of the district, outside of Essex County. 60 full-time employees. We're staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Professional workforce with licensed operators, mechanics, electricians, lab techs, engineers. So it's definitely a professional workforce. And we provide wholesale service. So we assess the member communities based on the flows and loads of what each community gives us. We don't charge rates. We charge the cities and the towns, and then the cities and towns charge the rates to the ratepayers. So a little bit different model than community-based water system.
David, is that measured at specific, where is that coming from the community, or how do you actually?
Yeah, so we sample every 48 hours. We take a composite sample at the boundaries of each border, and we read it for flow, BOD, and TSS. And based on that, we can determine the entire flows and loads and which portion is from which community. And then we break the budget up based on the percentage of the communities of what they're providing to us. So what do? Well, we convey wastewater from our member communities to the wastewater treatment plant that's located in Salem through a system of large interceptor pipes and pumping stations. The communities themselves, they own and maintain the sewers in the local streets, but we get the large interceptor pipes. In Salem, it's down along the river, goes down beneath the right near the MBTA station, cuts up along the bypass there, and then takes a right, goes across the toe of Collins Cove, across the Bentley School playground, and then to us at the SCSD right next to the power plants where we're located. We treat and clean and disinfect wastewater through our high-rate wastewater treatment plant. We pump purified wastewater about a mile offshore to a diffuser that's located in the Salem Sound off the coast of Beverly. We monitor our treatment process, and we also monitor our treatment process in significant industrial users to ensure they're maintaining permit compliance. And why do we do this? To protect public health and to protect the water quality of the Salem Sound. So that's always in our mind. So what's in wastewater? Well, certainly all the common things you think about. So human waste, lint and hair, gray water from sinks and showers, washing machines, dishwashers, food scraps, grease, oils and soaps, and then some of the things you may not think about that wind up there: household chemicals, wastewater from commercial facilities, breweries, whatnot, hospitals, Salem State. Pet litter and pet waste finds its way to us. And then the other thing we're dealing with that we're messaging about is the so-called flushable wipes, which are not truly particularly flushable. They still don't break down, many of them, and they're an issue for us and for the industry. We're governed by a permit issued in Massachusetts. It's issued by EPA. It's a wastewater discharge permit. MPDS is a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. I'm sure many of you have heard those letters before. And these are the parameters within our permit, some of the significant ones. So the flow of 29.7 million gallons per day. BOD and TSS, 25 and 30 milligrams per liter, and we have a mass limit on those two constituents as well. Fecal column form and enterococci to make sure that we're disinfecting the wastewater before it goes out, which we use chlorine to do, but we can't put residual chlorine out into the harbor either, so we have to quench that. So we have a total chlorine limit, and then pH. So we performed pretty well. This slide's about ready to be updated. We'll get our 2025 data in there now. Probably about a month from now we'll be able to update this. But it kind of tells a picture, influent and effluent, BOD, typical ranges around 200 milligrams per liter each. Effluent TSS average 19 milligrams per liter in 2024. Effluent BOD 12. We did about 24.5 million gallons per day overall average in 2024, which was a bit of a wet year, but not record wet certainly. Which relates to almost 9 billion gallons over the course of the year. And we did pretty well on the fecal coliform and enterococci limits. We also generated almost 29,000 pounds of sludge, or tons of sludge, sorry. I wish it was only 29,000 pounds. But now we'll talk a little bit more about residuals in the future in a few minutes. So this is a kind of a spine, or this is our collection system, as it were. So we've got a spine of pipes that starts out in Middleton, and works its way winding through Danvers, across the Porter River to the Dottie Avenue pump station in Danvers. We've got a force main that kind of winds its way on the backside through Ryleside, siphon across the Bass River and into Beverly. We've got a pump station then on Water Street at the Beverly pump station, right near the Juniper Yacht Club. That pumps across the Beverly Harbor to our treatment plant, which is where that large triangle is. You can also see the Peabody Salem interceptor, which comes down basically from the Dunkin' Donuts in the middle of downtown Peabody, following that railroad track. It's right in that same railroad track easement, and works its way to us. Then we also take wastewater from Marblehead. We've got a single pump station on the far side of Marblehead here. Pumps up to the high point near the DPW facility on Village Ave, and then it kind of from there goes by gravity, and then basically it's a large siphon beneath the Marblehead Harbor. You may recall that was replaced in 2013. Actually in 2015, it failed in 2013, took a year and a half to permit, and we replaced that in the winter of 2015. We did have two of them, so the one that leaked, we were able to take out of service, got all the flow through the other one. So luckily that one held on until we could put in two new redundant 24-inch pipes that went across the harbor. So that was a pretty big project for us, but successful. And
so when you have topography and you have to pump uphill, what's the energy source to pump up against gravity?
Yep. So yeah, sewer is going to flow obviously by gravity. There are going to be a lot of pump stations, in each community, kind of smaller ones that are going to handle in a development or a low spot, and then eventually it'll all fall away into the interceptor. The Peabody Salem interceptor runs by gravity from Peabody all the way to our pump station, all the way to our treatment facility. Then we've got a 52 MGD pump station that pumps all the wastewater from Peabody and Salem, and that uses power. We've got five 250 horsepower pumps in there. Probably one's running right now for Peabody and Salem, and pumps it up into our treatment plant where it flows by gravity through from there.
So the fuel for the pump is what?
Power off the grid.
So it's electricity?
Yeah, it's electricity. Yeah.
So you have one of those in for Marblehead?
There's electrical pump station. There's a pump station here, also powered by just power, right? Electricity. Okay. I think we have 4 pumps in Marblehead, and then in Danvers there's 3 pumps over there, and then there's 5 pumps in Beverly. Yep.
Great.
Yep.
And these are all completely separated systems?
Yes. But there are no CSOs left. We do see inflow and infiltration, but we don't have any known tied-in catch basins. So this is an aerial view of our treatment facility, like I said, at 54th Ave, right near the footprint power plant, or I guess they're under a new name now. And this shows what we've got. We come in at this far end here at the, this is the influent pump station where PBD and Salem comes in. That pipe is 84 inches in diameter when it gets to us, so you can literally walk through that pipe or it drain down. It goes to the aerated grip building, and then it works its way this way through the site. And we'll kind of step through the process and talk about what happens in each process. Two things you're might notice as you're looking at this. One, you can't see the wastewater anywhere. That's because, and it's not because we're not treating it and we don't have a lot of capacity, but all those grassy areas are tanks, underground tanks. So we've got underground primary clarifiers here right beneath our high tension lines, underground oxygen reactors, and then underground secondary clarifiers and chlorine contact basins at the far end. Yep.
How large is the capacity of your tanks?
I guess I don't know.
What was the question?
How large is the capacity? Yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, so we've got about a 4-hour HRT in our primary clarifiers. I think we're about 2 hours in the oxygen reactors and in secondary clarifiers. You know, we just don't think about that.
When were the tanks installed?
Yeah, so the primary system, which is up to about here, those was installed in the 1970s. That's 7 primary clarifiers. Each one's about 300 feet long, 40 feet wide, 12 feet deep roughly. And those, we just finished a project probably this time last year of relining those. So the concrete had gone bad over time, and so we took each one out sequentially. High pressure washed, 4,000 PSI pressure washed off the bad concrete, rebuilt that concrete, fixed any rebar that was going, and then put a epoxy coating on each of those tanks. That was like a 4-year project to work through all those. Roughly $20 million all told.
I might just make a comment in terms of then, I've seen images on the web of other wastewater treatment plants, and sometimes they have these big circular settling tanks and et cetera. And in terms of climate, that can be a source for greenhouse gas emissions. This setup here would seem to me to have a kind of a reduced greenhouse gas emission compared to what it could have, David, or not?
What we do have is that we have a very, very high amount of odor control because odor is generated everywhere. And so we've got, and those are labeled here, odor A, G, B. And so with those, we're moving a lot of air because it's hydrogen sulfide is generated. Right. And so we need to treat for that so it doesn't smell. And then, so we've got very large fans that are, taking that air through wet scrubbers, followed by chlorine GAC contactors, and then we've got vent stacks to get it up in the air and disperse it so it does not smell around the neighborhood.
Locally, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So what I was saying, 2 things you might notice here is, one, you can't see the wastewater anywhere, and that's because it was all contained really because of where we're located and the neighborhood concerns. So typically all these tanks would be open and you'd be able to, be able to see the wastewater,
Right.
and that's not the case with us.
Okay.
Second thing you'll notice is we're on a very tight site and everything's really kind of stuck in there. And that's also because of where we're located, what land was available. Like it's the primary plant, 70s vintage, secondary plant was built in the early 90s. That was it was a big contentious project. It took a lot of time. It was $200 to $300 million program. And I wasn't here for it, but there's a consent order with EPA pushing. The cities and towns were butting heads about where to locate it. Does it make sense to put it in Salem? Should we move it elsewhere? And so that was all, it was a big deal when that was putting together. We're on the Salem news, regularly.
Because that was primary treatment
to secondary expansion. Yep.
Secondary expansion, right?
Yeah. So that was a lot of money. So, it was a big deal. So we had to do a land taking. We took some of the Cat Cove Marine Center as part of this to allow us to fit, but we only could at that point take so much. So Yep. So in terms of treatment, we'll step through the treatment process real briefly. So like I said, we have the remote pump stations, or we have pump stations that are located around. And in each pump station, actually that's where we do our screening. So we've got bar racks at each of these pump stations to pull out the rags, the sticks and other things, the toys that get flushed down the toilet, and those come through that. Those bar racks are 1-inch bar spacing right now, 1 inch between the racks, which was fine 20 years ago, but with the advent and the proliferation of wipes, the wipes can just make their way right through. So one of our bigger process improvements we need to make is to replace those screens with a 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch bar screen spacing to better pull those wipes out. Because those wipes will make their way into our treatment plant. They kind of re-agglomerate, and you'll find them wrapped around everything. They clogging our pumps, and it's just a maintenance nightmare. We spend a lot of time cleaning wipes and other things that, other ragging materials. So after the screenings, we go into the aerated grit chambers. In the aerated grit chamber, it's just an open tank. This is the only open tank we have in our facility. Actually, everything else is beneath a hatch. We've introduced air in a helical pattern that scours the organic particles off the sand particles. The sand particles and other grit settle out, and then the organics flow into the remainder of the treatment process. So it's the grit removal process. That protects our downstream pumps, so the sand and stuff doesn't make its way through and sandblast our pumps in essence. Then we go into our primary treatment, which is the 7 underground tanks. Basically a wide spot in the line that'll just allow settling to happen. We've got a sludge collection system at the base of that, which looks like giant tank tracks really, where the sludge collectors that slide along. Those are stainless steel chains and fiberglass flights that move that sludge into a hopper where we can pump it out. After that primary treatment, we're eliminating 30 to 40% of the TSS, and 25 to 30% of the BOD comes out of the wastewater going in. Then we go into our biological secondary treatment, and we'll talk about the activated sludge process, I believe, on the next slide. That's where the bulk of the BOD treatment happens, and then the final TSS removal happens. And then we go into disinfection, so that's where we add sodium hypochlorite. Hold it in a tank for half an hour or whatever, so it can disinfect and kill the microorganisms that are in there. Add sodium bisulfite to quench the chlorine, and then we pump it out to the harbor. So when we were designed, we weren't built up high enough to allow gravity flow under all tidal conditions. So we actually have an effluent pump station, so another pump station at the back end of the plant to pump out of the treatment plant. And that's been there since, I don't know, the 30s or 40s, some sort of effluent pump station of some sort. So this is our activated sludge process, or a cartoon version of it. It's a little inaccurate, but in our case, we use two things. We use pure oxygen. We introduce pure oxygen into the headspace of our oxygen reactors. Then we've got a mixer in there that entrains the oxygen into the wastewater, and then that allows biodegradation. And we literally grow a microbiological, soup of bugs that'll bacteria and other advanced life that'll biodegrade the fuel, the BOD, the poop that's in the wastewater, and reduce that BOD and treat the organic matter that's in the wastewater. Convert it to CO2 and into biological cellular growth. Those bugs that grow and do that degradation, then this is called mixed liquor, and then we put it into the secondary clarifiers. In the secondary clarifiers, we let that all settle out. That gets the final treatment with the clarified effluent goes over the weir, over the top. The activated sludge, the bugs settle out. And then we actually recycle those bugs, and we use them over and over and over again. In our treatment plant, we keep them around for about 1.75 days. So that's our solids retention time, our sludge retention time. But we grow more than we need. So we actually have a wasting process we do every day to waste out the excess bugs that grow, and that's where some of that BOD removal is happening as well. Any questions on the activated sludge? it's kind of the basis of wastewater treatment, but the crux of it.
So is there anything exposed to the air from, if you were looking down at this on your image?
Nope, they're contained tanks. They're actually under pressure because we're pumping pure oxygen in them, so they're under a couple inches of water column pressure. So, yep. Let's see.
Useful bugs.
This was a video. I don't know if that's working or not. No, maybe not. Well,
What is the gentleman doing that's in that image
so
there?
this is a microscopic image of our organisms. So you can see it's a bacteria and then some rotifers and other advanced life forms, and they'll degrade what's in the wastewater. And so this is kind of what we see. We pull a sample about once a week, look at it under the microscope, and you can just see the various advanced life forms that we'll see that will develop in our wastewater. So it's better on a video, but so. And that's our microscopic setup there, and our one of our lab techs. So.
You mind if I ask, what would be worrisome to that tech?
So not all bugs. You've got to culture the right set of organisms, or they don't settle very well. You want them to kind of glom together and settle out. So if you get some it's called bulking, where you get these stringy things that won't settle out. They're long, the filamentous organisms. They get long and spiky, and it's just going to make it. It doesn't glom together and coagulate and settle. Instead, it kind of flakes all out, and then it doesn't settle very well. So depending on, so we keep an eye on what those microorganisms are, and if we see these filaments proliferating, we know we got a problem. We got to go back and look at the process, look if we're keeping it too long, or if something came in, are we giving enough oxygen? All these things are, depending on what we see, there's some different process actions we need to take.
Thank you, man.
So residuals. So we generate residuals every day. Two different sources of it for us. First, that primary sludge. So that's the stuff that's settled out in the primary clarifiers, and then the secondary sludge, which is the excess biomass that's developed during secondary treatment. Together, we take these off. We combine them, and we add polymer chemicals. And then we squeeze as much water out of them as we can. So we take them from 0.5% solids, so 5,000 milligrams per liter, and we'll try to get them down to 22%, 23% solids. So we're not hauling water off for disposal. The other thing that's happened and is happening, and this slide or this pie chart down below shows where our residuals went in 2024. In 2025, the composting facility that we're going to up in Maine shut down. So we have basically, that 50% compost has changed, has basically gone away as of summer 2025. So we are a passive receiver of PFAS. So we will see there's PFAS in every human body. It comes out in your excrement and elsewhere. It comes out when you shower or shower off Gore-Tex, all those types of things. It comes to us and it shows up in our residuals. So there's been a lot of, the last 5 to 10 years, PFAS is the buzzword about residuals. So 4 years ago in Maine, they did a land application ban. So it used to be that all the sludge in Maine and a lot from Massachusetts will go up to Maine, get composted, get land applied on fields, and the nutrients will be recycled and returned to the earth and reused. Maine passed a land application ban. Now, that's basically shut that all down. Connecticut followed suit. Massachusetts, there's legislation right now in the House and the Senate that'll probably get approved that's going to ultimately ban land application in Massachusetts, which means we're doing things like our sludge is now taking a 2-day trip out to New York to a composting facility out in New York where they're still accepting, they're still doing land application. Or it's going to Connecticut and Rhode Island for incineration, so we got a little bit more of that, and then it's going up to northern New Hampshire and then Coventry, Vermont for landfill. So it's a big deal.
The cost implications for you with respect to having to go to either to greater landfill or incineration versus the composting?
We'll get there. So we generate about 30,000 tons per year, 29,000, which is roughly 3 tractor trailer loads every day. We haul it out at night. We've got a contract with a company called Casella. We've been working with them for 9.5 years now, and they handle our residuals, and they've got these facilities all across New England and New York that they've been taking it to. But it's expensive. So even we're in year 9 of an 11-year contract that we signed back before PFAS were an issue. And so even now they're expensive. They're roughly 20% of our operating budget. But because of PFAS and other pressures, a lot of sludge outlets are getting shut down. And so the market's getting tighter and tighter. This facility, Fall River, Massachusetts, is putting it on a train and hauling it to Pennsylvania to a landfill. So those are the type of things that we're looking at as in our next contract, which we'll be bidding this time next year. So we're expecting to see our costs go up roughly 50% for our residuals, which is our largest line item for residuals. So, or in our budget.
Technological innovations that you're looking at that would do something that would be included in your treatment training, for instance, and reduce your could you do something that would reduce the PFAS in your residuals, or is that?
I was at this wastewater conference for 3 days this week, and probably half the talks were about PFAS and PFAS removal, and there's no proven technology yet. They've been trying, facilities set up in New Jersey trying to do this, it's just shut down. They can't quite make it work yet. So that's a gasification. There's pyrolysis that's being tried. There's a pilot test that we're going to be a part of, the DEP sponsoring, that's going to look at 3 or 4 different technologies and pilot tests, using with Massachusetts wastewater sludge. We're going to send 500 pounds of residuals out to California to a pyrolysis facility and see if we can destroy it. So everybody's looking for a solution. Unfortunately,
aren't they doing like GAC or something in drinking water? In
drinking water, they're doing GAC. Yeah, it comes out okay in GAC, but then what do you do with your GAC that's loaded up with PFAS now? But all these solutions are really expensive and super capital intensive. So what we're doing, at least for the short term as we watch this, is we're looking to replace our dewatering equipment, which is 25 years old, with something that's going to remove more water. So we're hauling less water and hauling less, reducing our volume that we're generating. The other thing that some places do, we'd love to do, but we were 20 years ago when we were exploring this, basically the city of Salem wasn't interested in seeing eggshell digesters all along the coast. So if you come into MWA, those big digesters, because that would do another.
Is that tertiary?
They anaerobically digest the sludge, and so you get more. You basically reduce your volume by 30 to 40%, because it biodegrades more, generates methane, which you can then use for energy recovery, and heat recovery. But that's been an issue. Now we have no land to put it on, so it's sort of, because that would be a 5 to 6 acre facility to get a couple of these digesters in. So that's what some places are doing. So hopefully a regional solution comes up. The other thing that's starting to be looked at is just basically drying the residuals to 90% dryness, and then just to reduce volume. But to do that, you're using a bunch of natural gas or something else to generate it. So everybody's kind of scrambling for the ultimate long-term solution. So not sure where it's going to go. Yeah, I think that talked about that. And this is just a schematic of our entire process. It's on our website. I'm not going to go through it today, but it is there if you're interested in taking a scan. So we'll skip now a little bit, or move on to our sustainability, energy, and resiliency efforts. So when I think sustainability, and this is probably not the textbook definition certainly, but it is one. So when we think of it historically, we've kind of thought about it, a really broad emphasis is on how do we keep our organization intact, the rates under control, assessments under control, and sustain our organization so we can continue to be here, maintain our equipment, maintain our assets, maintain our treatment and what we do. So that's been our kind of broad definition of sustainability. But when I kind of break that down, some of the ways we're doing this is, well, one, we've had a very active energy efficiency program over 20 years. This graph on the right here shows where we were up at 25 million kilowatt hours and when our secondary plant went online in 2000. And then by turning equipment off, finding out what we needed, didn't need, and then doing a whole lot of different, energy efficiency upgrades, we got down to 18,000 in 2017, 2018. Then also as part of the energy management program, we put in a cogeneration facility. We've got a constant heat load associated with our odor control. So now we're generating our own power. That unfortunately, it is run by natural gas, it's fueled by natural gas. So we're buying natural gas, making our own power, and using that heat for our process heat load. What that does do for us is we're able to recover basically 72% of the power or the energy that's in the natural gas because we can use the power and the heat. Whereas if we buy power off the grid, all that heat's kind of going off the stack with those guys for the power plants, and so they're running 35% net efficiency. So the gain is by having it localized, you can recover that heat. But in terms of greenhouse gas output, our greenhouse gas went up as maybe not because if we were buying off the grid. So at any rate, but our localized greenhouse gas went up as we started burning a lot of natural gas to run this 1.4 megawatt cogeneration facility. That's been a pretty effective tool for us, but it's not 100% reliable. It was the partnership that put it together. They didn't make very many as a certain set of groups of companies that worked together on this, and so we've had some issues. So we were down for 6 weeks with a VFD that went out, had to be ordered from Germany, came in and wasn't programmed correctly, so then we had to get a tech up from Florida, but they shut down for 2 weeks over Christmas, so it's just been a frustrating process sometime. These complicated mechanical systems with a lot of parts sourced out of Germany, a lot of electronics, PLCs, so we're just stocking as many spares as we can because it's just a matter of time before the next something happens, so we're trying to be self-sufficient.
How do you share these successes with the public? Like when you see reduced energy bills as a revenue source and things like that, a lot of people don't think about wastewater until something goes wrong or their bill goes up. How do you try to communicate to the public the investments that you're putting into this?
Coming to places like this, right?
Well, unfortunately, you're talking to people that are rooting for you.
We're grateful for Salem Access TV, yeah.
But do you get out into public events and programming to try to?
We're trying to do that, and we're trying to do more of that, obviously. So we're coming to the sustainability fair, and we might not be talking about this, energy reduction in particular. It's more about the importance of why we're there and wipes and things like that. Something the public, that might be a little bit more tangible for the public. But yeah, we're not, the industry as a whole, it's out of sight, out of mind, so the ethos after we finished our secondary plant was just lay low, and so we've been realizing we need to change that. So, we've redone our website. We're trying to get out to the public. We're getting back out into the schools. We're partnering with Change is Simple and Salem Sound Coast Watch to get out. And so those are the things that we realize we need to do. So and we need to do a better job. But so, in addition to this energy efficiency, we also do demand response programs. So we shed load when ISO New England calls us to shed load. So that's a revenue source for us, and we can do that fairly reliably. We purchase, we're hedging our gas and energy procurement, so we're watching when gas is cheap and trying to buy gas when we can, and when power is cheap with third parties. So I was on the website today looking at natural gas. It spiked to $7, a decatherm, where I think ours is hedged out under $4 for this month. So for February. So I'm feeling good about that, but we'll see how that goes. So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you try to at least protect yourself. So.
So when would you benefit the most financially from shedding load? Is it what?
So the way the grid incentivizes and has a series of programs to shed load when the grid is stressed.
Okay.
So it's typically in the summer. We'll be asked to shed load. We do a daily demand response, and then we do another demand response. And under daily demand response, they might call for us 50 to 60 times a summer to shed a little bit of load, and if we reliably do that, we get a revenue source based on the amount we shed. And that's for them, as everybody's running their air conditioners at 4 or 5 o'clock, the grid's heating up, and the powers can be really, really expensive at these spike markets at this time. So if they can get that power reduction down on the overall grid, all the prices drop. And so they incentivize people like us and other big power users to shed load.
Okay.
And then on the really peak days, when it's been day 3 of a heat wave, that's when you're getting close to like brownout status. Then they're going to call for us to shed even more and say, all right, we're going to be really hot this afternoon from 3 to 7, you need to do what you can to shed load, and they'll also incentivize that. So it's a couple of different programs and reasons they're doing it. Let's see, and then as a coastal community, we understand how important resiliency is and to protect our assets. I mean, it's just, we're kind of seeing what's happening, we know what's happening, and so we'll talk a little bit more about that, what we're doing. So here's some recent efforts along this front. We completed a detailed review of the resiliency options of the Beverly Pump Station in 2021. That's on Water Street near the Jubilee Yacht Club. That's a typo. That was partner with Beverly in a CZM grant to do that. As a sewage district, we can't actually get funds through CZM. It has to go through the communities. So it becomes a little bit troublesome or difficult for us to get these funds because we've got to partner with another community, and then we can't be the grant signee, and so we've got to have the right contractual relationship. And so this one worked okay. We gave some, basically, gave some effort for them as part of their grant payment. We just gave resources that we just labor time to produce this. But here, projected coastal flooding, mostly on a storm surge event. This is our most exposed asset, certainly, is this pump station. It actually already floods over the street there, so they've got the Beverly's working on some ways to reshape that beach to kind of avoid the street flooding.
Is that astronomical high tide, you mean? Or with the
storm events, yeah, during a nor'easter, yeah.
Right, nor'easter.
Yeah, I don't think it comes up during just astronomical high tide.
Okay, cool.
And so as part of that grant program and communication, one of our contributions was to purchase some little floodgates, because we've got a garage there that's down a little bit below, it's the low point of the site. So if we see a nor'easter coming or a hurricane coming, we can put these in to keep this from inundating our pump station. Haven't had to deploy them yet in the last few years, but it'll be nice to have them should something be rolling in. So.
Do you have any emergency generators or anything in the pump stations that do use fossil fuels? If it was inundated, would there be the potential for fossil fuel release?
There is this Beverly pump station. It has a generator. All the pump stations do. It's an underground storage tank. with diesel in it. It's in a concrete vault though, packed around with sand. So I think we'd be in reasonable shape with that, with all underground piping. But, yeah. Also, some other things we're doing. We actually just signed a power purchase agreement to deploy a 240 kilowatt solar array. So that's going to go on our secondary clarifier. So we're putting that over a series of tanks. So we're waiting for that. That'll has to go off for an interconnection agreement. I sent some letters to some neighborhood groups and to the city solar guy whose name I'm forgetting, and just to make sure that no one's going to be annoyed when we deploy one of these things. But it's kind of out of sight a little bit, and so far I've had no it's all been good feedback, which is good. So, but just trying to do my due diligence. So
potentially be visible from the water side?
They will be visible from the water side because they'll actually be pointed that direction. But they're higher up, so they're on one of the tanks that's slightly elevated. So, yeah. I guess maybe I should reach out to the harbor master, but keep that in mind. And then we just completed a replacement of a backup power generator at the Danvers pump station. So maybe not sustainability, but certain resiliency. So power goes out in Danvers, we've got a way. And so the one we had there was a temporary generator that had been there 25 years. So it's time for a permanent installation. So that's just went online a couple months ago.
Just one quick question. So for the public, Dave and SCSD did share that study that was for resiliency in Beverly, so that you members, you did get a copy of that. So
that might be a different study. This is the CZM one. We got another study we're talking about in the next slide. So
okay.
The
Yep.
AECOM one.
Yeah.
No, you give me the 20. While I was waiting for the AECOM.
Oh, okay. You went and did it? Okay. Yeah. All right.
You told me about
Okay.
it, so then I did share it with the members.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
My apologies.
No.
Yeah, that was an interesting project. They're doing a lot over there. So. And then here's the other one. So we're finishing now a 20-year capital improvement plan for the treatment plant, our pump stations, as well as our collection system. And then I did share that resiliency chapter of that report that's gone out. And reviewing that, I'm comforted, I guess, a little bit that there's no immediate needs, for sea level rise and storm surge that are out there. I think we do have one set of garage doors at our effluent pump station that I'll sleep better if we come up with the right solution on those, because that would flood our entire tunnel system were it to come up to that high of an event. Never seen it on the road there, so that we've still got another foot or two above that. But if we had the right conditions and the right storm surge, it'd have to be more of a sandy event in my mind than a just a high tide. But it could happen certainly, and so that's something that we're thinking about. So that's one of those things that we want to look at in the next 10 years to protect some of these door thresholds. Then we've got that Beverly pump station. We've got to do some hardening there. And probably within 20 years, we're probably looking at a seawall, both in Beverly and potentially at the treatment plant as well, as kind of the ultimate solution. Certainly open to other ideas. We've not really assessed detailed needs at this point, but I think that's sort of, it may be the lowest hanging fruit type thing, because it's not, we're up gradient there on either side of the plant, so it's not, we don't have to ring around the entire plant.
Mind if I just ask, this is the AECOM?
This is the AECOM report, yeah.
So, David, so you mentioned, so it's a 20-year capital improvement plan, so 20 years from now would be 46, so in terms of climate change projections that AECOM might have used, often they look at 2030, 2050, 2070, 2100. So this that would be a focus on 2050.
That'd be the 2050 thing, yeah.
Focus.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, I've kind of circled the 2030 ones for now. Say, all right, these are the ones I got to be thinking about on this round, right. And then the 2050 ones, that's for my replacement. So.
Okay.
So David, do you have, one of the things in looking through the plan a little bit, and John and I had talked about this, I don't know if you conveyed any of your thoughts to you, but one of the things that seemed sort of unaddressed, and I'm sure it's not, I'm not unaware, but were the issues of the precip, types of events, not the storm surge, not the storm surge coming from the water side, but
Okay.
the short-term high-intensity rain events that create the kind of flooding potential, and potential for that to be exacerbated based on what we've seen from Crowley about what they plan to do on your neighboring property. So are you working with them and others? When you mentioned that you were a little bit on a rise, so you're sort of shedding water as opposed to maybe getting it, but both of those instances of you being at sort of a higher elevation and Crowley planning to create a higher elevation speaks to a potential problem on the backside for the people on the roadway flooding. So I guess I'm interested and curious about whether or not the city is looking, or you're working with the folks at the city and looking at their pipe hydraulics, what's going to be coming onto your property. You have, I think, you seem to have less vulnerability just based on the fact that so much of it is covered, but you still are going to be having stormwater related issues from the backside and not just from the water side.
So the low point in our stormwater discharge is about here. And so this grade goes up here, and this is the Ford Avenue is actually fairly high at this corner. And then and it's a fairly high there. So the 100-year floodplain, or the projected ones, kind of maybe terminate about here, because that gets up high enough. So this is kind of our area of concern now, in the short term, are those buildings in that area there that we need to be raising or be thinking about thresholds and hardening. So Crowley's located up here. They're talking about raising their entire grade some 2 feet or whatever the number is. They're talked about sloping it to the water. They had put that trench in, right? The rain collection trench, which I think was expanded based on Concom comments. So I'm not sure they'll be coming towards us. So I guess then on those high intensity rainfalls, we'd have to look at our current stormwater collection system, which is really just isolated to our treatment plant. We've got 1 or 2 catch basins up on Ford Avenue, but most of it, there's nothing from the city that's coming onto us.
So you don't have there's no MS4 coming into your facility where you're discharging out of anything?
No, we kind of have our own self-contained system. Like I said, 1 or 2 catch basins on Ford Avenue. So we've got a stormwater discharge permit for our little system. We might have 20 or so catch basins on the plant. So we have not had we've not looked at that for capacity at this point.
Yeah. I mean, just as an aside, that's one of the things when I did do some work with GLSD, and that was exactly the issue for them, was that they had on-site problems related to flooding, and not so much. They did have some issues with MS4 coming into the property as well, but they had just problems on their property with managing stormwater, and the potential for there being high intensity events meant the potential for flooding and some of their processes. So okay. You don't look like you have.
Well, I have not seen any major ponding. Yeah. So it's not something that's raised into the radar very high. Yeah. So. Yeah, and then all the other, all the pump stations are located basically on tidal rivers, so I haven't thought about rain coming down from that side. It's about the tides, because we're not. Yeah, they're all on the tidal side. So, yeah.
So we're in Q&A now.
Sure.
In terms of your presentation. Okay, cool. So
let's see if there's. Maybe there's 1 or 2 more things.
Okay,
So let's see. We just. Oh yeah, so now we're working on this plan, this long-range plan, Resiliency, which is one component, and we're communicating with the city leaders, town leaders, legislative leaders, of how we're going to basically raise and spend. Our capital plan looks like it's going to be in a range of $400 million for the next 10-year horizon. That doesn't get us out to the full 20-year plan either. We're just focusing on the first 10 years. So we've got issues on how to deal with the capital, raise the capital, and get community support for the capital. Then also when the sludge prices increase a year and a half from now, we're under Prop 2.5 as communities are. And so that's also a serious concern of ours, is how we're going to have a balanced budget under Prop 2.5 when we see a $2 million increase on our residuals on day one. So we're in active conversations now with the legislative delegation and with the cities and towns and mayors to, what's the right solution for this? Because it's got to be all 5 member communities agreeing on something. And it's probably going to be special legislation to address these 2 issues that are currently restraining us under Prop 2.5. So that's where we're at now. And as by investing in these are the types of benefits that we see on the sustainability side, that in terms of reducing our volume of sludge that we're hauling, replacing and updating and getting redundant, resilient underwater pipelines. There's a single line now that brings all the wastewater from Beverly and Danvers underneath the Beverly Harbor to us. So we want to add 2 new redundant pipelines, parallel pipelines, because that pipe's 40 years old. So these are the type of investments that we feel we need to make, and so this is what we're bringing to the communities now of what our needs are.
Is that one of your interceptors that you can see at low tide down at the end of Ocean Street?
That's not us there. So, but no, you can't see it. It comes up on Dead Horse Beach, is where it comes back on land after coming across the Beverly Harbor. So in addition, and then then just maintenance type work that needs to be done, replacing 20-year-old roofs, HVAC, electrical gear, all these things need to be maintained to bring them on. So I think, I skipped the slide. There it is. What's next? I guess that's where we're supposed to be talking about that. Yes, but anyway. So need for buy-in and support by a wide net of stakeholders is crucial. How's that?
What is the option? I mean, what is the alternative? I mean, at this point, it serves, a couple 100,000 people. You were saying. I mean, I feel your pain, but I can't understand what other options people would be looking at besides reinvesting in this facility.
We dump it in the North River like they did in the Thames, and we wind up with the Great Stink.
That's basically, it would be within 2 years or whatever, 3 years, we'd have to defer money out of maintenance, so things would start to break. We'd be under permit compliance issues fairly quickly, and then we'd probably be under a consent order, and then we'd be under EPA fines and a consent order and being told how to do it as opposed to approaching it in a logical way, which we think we have. So, that's where we're at.
Is there any, and this is not intended to be a political question per se, but given where EPA is these days and with respect to enforcement activity, are there any potential opportunities for, obviously from an operating safety and all of that, you want to do all this maintenance and investment. Have you had any sort of indications from the federal government that EPA is not going to be as enforcement concerned as they might have been in the past?
Not yet. We did see our final MPDS permit was issued about a month ago, and that they had pulled out all the adaptation planning requirements. So that's happening in all the New England permits. So I don't know if that's a sign of less inspection or keeping an eye on things, but more of the priorities in Washington about sea level rises. Not it was against president policies and whatnot.
So Dave, I was interested in the 240 kilowatt solar array. And I might just encourage SESD to do a full kind of solar feasibility assessment, like how much solar could you get on site just to to generate clean energy. And that's one recommendation I might make. The other one is you're positively a critical asset, so we would be an ally in you satisfying potential state mandates on greenhouse gas emissions inventory. I recommend that you think that I would think that that's in your future, is that it'll be mandated. So right now, does SESD know the greenhouse gas emissions from that facility?
I believe we do. We have an annual reporting requirement
Okay.
under our air permit.
Okay.
Under the state, and
Okay.
that goes out every year. So we'll start that fairly soon for calendar year 2025. Yeah. Yeah.
Anybody else think of anything?
When it comes to the disposable but not really disposable wipes, I just can't help but to think back to the 30s and 40s and people thinking that, well, this is just the way it is. This is a consumer product, so that's what we have to deal with. It's probably not in this administration, but is there any hope for remediation on the amount of destruction that these things actually cause to infrastructure?
I think most of the focus has been on labeling right now, just a clear labeling of what's flushable and what's not flushable, because it's murky.
Yeah.
There's definitions, there's technical definitions of flushable wipes, but the labeling's just not good. I don't know if there's any real talk of banning non-flushable wipes, but it just needs to be it needs to be more clear on the definitions and to regulate those.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, the ones that are non-flushable are probably cheaper than the ones that are actually legitimately flushable. So at the end of the day, people are going to buy what they can afford. So it's just one of those, This is so obviously terrible for infrastructure that's trying to keep us not swimming in our own fecal matter.
Yeah.
How there's no, obviously right now, I know how there's no push at a higher level to try to stop the.
I think there's some legislation still floating around at the federal level, but yeah, it's not front and center.
And then the storage tanks, how you were talking about how they were built in the 70s. Is there a capacity worry about like the population of, say, Salem, maybe not Marblehead, Danvers, Beverly, just about anywhere, the population boom that Essex County is going through? Is there any worries about capacity of these tanks?
So the way it works is we have a capacity for the treatment plant, and that's based on the permit, and that's the 29.7 MGD. Right now, under typical years, we're at 25 MGD, so we're getting close to the permit limit. When this plant was expanded to secondary treatment 20 years ago, it was closer to 28 MGD, so it was even higher. So we've certainly, over the last 20 years and 30 years, we've seen a large reduction in industrial flow, and then we're seeing a growth in commercial and residential flow. And then we saw that very clearly 3 years ago when Rousselot shut its doors, because they were 10% of our flow and a substantial part of our loading. So that's freed up a little bit of capacity that's available. But yes, that is something we've been brought to and discussing with the board, is how do we preserve that capacity? How do we track that capacity? Because once we get above that 30 MGD number, then it's a significant effort to re-permit it at an expanded flow rate, and that would be a significant effort, probably a significant set of plant modifications. We do have excess treatment capacity. It was conservatively designed, but you've got to convince the regulators that that's the case, and the pumps only have a certain capacity, certainly. So that is an active topic that we're thinking about, and we're tracking the developments. We're tracking the housing laws and, what the governor and lieutenant governor are saying. And it's definitely a concern, but it's not a critical concern at the moment. It's more, all right, how do we keep this under control?
What is that actual image, the photo showing there?
So that is our pipeline replacement job across the Marblehead Harbor.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was two 24-inch HDPE pipes that were fused together, floated, and then sunk. A trench was dug and it was sunk into it. So
Okay.
that all happened in
Hope you
the
didn't have any sturgeon. Oh my God.
just eelgrass and winter flounder. That's all.
What's that?
Eelgrass and winter flounder. That's all we had to work around. And underwater archaeology.
Yes.
Sure. Underwater archaeology.
Yeah. No, I've talked to Josh a little bit about
Yeah. That was a hell of a project.
Yeah, we had a bunch of nets, with silk curtains, I guess, is what the bigger concern was for the eelgrass on this job. So, and it had to be done in winter months, and we picked the winter 2015 to do it. So it was bad.
Wow.
Yeah, change order for ice. How many times you get ice in the Salem Harbor? So.
Do you ever any other areas of the pipes you own anyway, or with and particularly around your pump stations, with respect to hydrogen sulfides or anything like that, where you've got issues from whether it's your cycle issues or too big or too small with respect to your pump capacities, that have any neighbors that you hear from?
So we have a mile-long force main that runs from Dottie Avenue to a high spot in the Ryle side. And it's 30 inches in diameter. It goes in and out of the water, so it's comes up on land, goes back in the harbor. I'm not sure why they routed it that way. And during summer, when it's not flowing very fast, it definitely generates a lot of hydrogen sulfide. So we've got a downstream siphon structure here that is in very, very rough shape because it's where it's scoured out. So that's one of the highest priority projects, is to get in and redo that before it completely fails. We were able to inspect both that force main and that siphon downstream of it. We did a project with CDM Smith where they brought it's called like a sewer snake. So it's a sensor we put down. It's about 15 feet long with electromagnetic sensors on it that we're able to put in a pipe and float down the pipe and determine wall thickness all along this pipe. And both the force main and the siphon pipes were in good shape. So that's encouraging, very encouraging. I was very afraid that 30-inch force main was going to need significant work, but it's a few areas of pitting, at high spots, but it's not bad. So I think in the mid to long term, probably midterm, we need to come up with another chemical addition or a way to operate that force main so as not to generate the same amount of sulfides.
So this was a 20-year capital plan. When do you, as the board, think about the next plan? I mean, do 15 years go by, or do 18 years go by of a 20-year plan, or is it more like 10 or 12 go by because you're already starting to think about, right, who are we going to contract for the next 20 years?
Well, first we have to formalize this plan. So it's getting close. We had a few of the reports were accepted by the board at the last board meeting, so I can get those out to DEP for technical review. We generated, based on the facilities plan and the CIP we developed what's called a comprehensive wastewater management plan, which is a certain document format that the DEP likes to see. And to show all our needs in it and how we're planning to address those needs, that hopefully gets us higher prioritization for funding from the state, SRF funding. That's the reason to do that. So I need to get that approved by them. The board, we're still working on the financing and what the costs of financing are going to be, because we're rescheduling a few of the projects before we kind of finalize the capital plan.
Okay.
And that'll all come together fairly quickly here as we start framing the legislative ask and things like that, because we've got to get out to the city councils to talk about this.
The competition for those SRF funds must be going up now that the rates have gone so high. I mean, for a while there, the 2% wasn't even that terribly attractive. Now I'm sure it is.
Yeah, they're way over subscribed.
Yeah.
So the last 2 to 3 years has not been enough money. So we're not overly we're not overly optimistic we're going to be able to get much SRF funding. So.
Okay, right.
Josh doesn't get any more, does he? So you can get some of that money.
So I might chase the WIFIA program. That's
Yeah.
that's one of the places we're looking. So yeah.
All righty. Thank you so much. You ready?
And good luck to you.
Yes, absolutely. Good luck. And you're welcome back, at another time to update us or
Or let us know
Or
if
let
there's
us-
something you would like us to
yes.
do in support of.
Yeah, definitely please let us know.
We've got a meeting with the mayor the 10th, I think. So we'll see what Mr. Prangallo has to, meet with him. And we're seeing the PBD City Council in March, so we're starting to line this up to
Right.
get the community back in and
That's great.
That's
get
great.
whatever the legislators have requested. So that's what
Very good. That's just great to hear. All right. Thank you so much. That kind of concludes our meeting. And do we have any other updates?
I mean, unless you really want to discuss the 400-plus party recap, and you said discuss future circ events. Those were the only two things that you
Okay,
had to
so future circ events was, and the 400 plus, those were connected. The Salem High School 400 plus event was a great success. I mean, the number of the public was just amazing. They were the two long corridors after you get in through the entrance were completely tabled.
Yep.
So, and then they were just, the hallways were packed with the public, parents bringing their kids,
Yep.
parents coming by, visiting the NGOs. It just was a truly successful event by the city. So I just wanted to report on that. Stacy was there, Stacy and I were there. Stacy handled kind of the sustainability stuff, the game. She was, and then I was doing the electricity, incandescent bulbs, compact fluorescent, and the LED. Parents brought their children, they cranked, and I was busy just nonstop. I had customers nonstop for 2.5 hours, and it was, and it just was such a cool event. So I just think would like, that was a good event. So future 400 plus. I want Cirque to be represented. We'll support Stacy. Stacy was completely busy, and then I was completely busy. So it did need 2 people.
If John hadn't showed up, it would have been bad. So,
And
They put a call out to us.
I thought I did.
Yeah, I would have liked to have attended. I ended up having to go to a Salem, an event elsewhere, but.
I mean, I'll send you all a list of the other events I've got coming up.
Please do.
Because the EV Expo, I literally cannot run that with fewer than 10 volunteers.
Right.
That's
so
all.
we're stalwart supporters of you for that.
Well, we have a lot of new members since the
Yeah, so
last
we have-
TV Expo,
that's true.
so we have to get the word out.
Get the word out. Yep. Is that April?
About the necessity.
It
So it is
April 12th.
April. So we have.
It doesn't conflict with school vacation week this year, so that should help our attendance. And I also.
Is it going to be good weather or?
I'm going to have a foul weather day in May. So if it turns out to be gusts of wind that are tent destroying
Yes,
or
that
raining or both, we'll
That
just.
was hilarious.
May.
Yeah.
I had more exhibitors and visitors last year partly because of that, so. but-
Well,
I mean, it's good though, a lot of the exhibitors do.
Oh, it was still a success.
I think
Oh,
so.
yeah, it was fun.
I haven't joked about this yet with Neil, but I keep meaning to joke that I'm gonna set up an event, not for the public, but just for all of the exhibitors I have at my various events to network with each other, because honestly, that seems to be what happens the most at a lot of these things that I organize. Which
Sure.
is, fine, but
There's a lot of value in that. so,
there is,
yeah.
there
I think
is.
what is developing, I think that the consistency and continuity, having it year to year, year over year, people, I think, the same people may show up, but that's okay, they're showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'll say that I brought my family to the 400 plus at Salem High. Saw some of the local dignitaries.
yep.
The mayor was there. My ward counselor was there. A couple other counselors were there. The lieutenant governor showed up.
Yep, yep.
Imagine that.
Yeah, the organizer said that they had about 8 times as many people as they expected.
Right.
For the
Because-
400 plus?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think, because I was like, well, there's 80 organizations and every organization posts about it somewhere.
Yeah.
Newsletter, social media, or whatever, and you invite the whole city.
We were looking for the children's area. We couldn't find it, but
I wasn't aware there was one.
yeah, it was in the list of things to do.
No. I was disappointed I didn't get to see the ice mosaics before they took down the lights. And
Oh, right, yeah.
I didn't manage to leave my booth. I didn't even have time to drink
I
my beverage, so,
barely got to say hello to you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It was,
That sounds like a good event.
she said if they do another such thing, they will require exhibitors to bring 2 people.
Oh, okay.
Just so, because needed it.
yeah.
Okay. Well, anyways, I would love to entertain a motion to adjourn. Everybody?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
And is there a second?
Second.
All right. So thank you for joining us, the public, or if you view this at a later date, thank you to Adam of Salem Access TV. Really appreciate it so much. And thanks again to our guest speaker, David Michelson, the Executive Director of the SCSD South Essex Sewerage District. So thank you so much. Good night.